The merging of two minds and two M's in the late 80s saw the birth of graphic design house MM. Together, Amzalag and Mathias Augustyniak explore communication through images and symbols. Their vast body of work that brings us here to France to intersect with MM and their parallel realities. I'm Amy Devers. This is Designer People, where we profile the world's leading designers through their creative connections.
If you sign the right message, at one point someone is going to answer you. MM is a partnership, like a graphic design partnership. So we are dealing with signs, images and icons, and the idea was to be able to construct within the reality some kind of, I would say, in bracket, parallel realities.
I think we've been working on more like maybe than 2,000 projects till the last 12 or 15 years. In each one of them there's been some enjoyment and pleasure, some have been more painful.
We are a very small studio. The idea is that for us we like to work with, whether if it's a small project or a very huge project, to be able to still be involved with the person we're working with. So working with us, you have a direct contact. By working with someone is discovering the other person, and this other person discovering us.
I think they're just so creative and they're artists in their own right that they're operating on a very high level. So when it comes to doing something that maybe doesn't require quite so much creativity or needs to sell a product, it's easy enough for them to do that. It's really hard to be commercial and then try to strive to be creative. You can't go up, but it's very easy to go down.
J'aime vraiment beaucoup Michael et Mathias, deux graphistes que j'adore et que je considère à part entière des grands artistes de notre temps.
Being graphic designer is like a tool. It allows us to work with people as different as someone like a pop singer like Björk, to a small theatre company based in Brittany, or like a big, I would say, fashion corporation like Calvin Klein, or a sharper one like Balenciaga or Yuji Yamamoto.
We actually know their work through magazines, so through typical commercial venues. But we also know their work through the art world, so there's an interesting crossover. It's not this typical high-low separation between graphic design and artists anymore, and I think they do a very interesting crossover.
They are rock stars. They really are rock stars. It's another example of designers who can move between disciplines with the most incredible dexterity.
All the projects we do are real projects, but we tend to push them far enough so they become like a proposal for a way of envisioning the reality. For instance, if we design a cafe, it's a real cafe, but then we try to reprogram the function of a cafe in Paris, for instance. We worked on a cafe called the Café Etienne Marcel in the second area in Paris. There is a big tradition for cafes in Paris. One of the first design cafes was called Café Coste, and it was designed by Philippe Starck. That was in the 80s. The idea for us was, how do we approach like an ideal cafe for our generation.
And basically each one of the elements in the cafe has a different story. So for instance, the furniture that's inside and the main piece, which is like the base of this big light, are furniture that were found in public housing in the 70s in France. For us, they were part of our memories of that time when we were teenagers in the 70s. Then the tables have these kind of edges, so they look a bit like kind of extended skateboards. So we bring a bit of the life of the street of today in the context of like the street of our youth. And then you've got the carpet on the floor that's decorated with a pattern, which in fact is a typeface that's been designed by somebody that can't read or write. There is like hidden text in the carpet that gives again a backstory to the whole thing.
We never pretend that we were furniture designers or architects, but the way we approach architecture or design, I would say furniture design, is we approach it as if it was an image.
I love it. It has completely the French elegant touch, and I think that they are one of the trendiest. I really don't like using the word trendy, but that's what they are. They are trendy and they're cool, and they have this very elegant and raw style.
So it goes from designing a magazine like Interview magazine, where we are hired as classic, I would say, graphic designer, where we're in charge of the look of the magazine, but also in charge of the content of it. We've been working with Björk for a long time. We wanted her to be on the cover. It was our first issue that we were plainly designing. It was a way to celebrate this encounter.
I mean, it all started right after we met with this project. That was the first thing we did for her. And from that, it grew organically into many other projects.
Since we work for Vespertine, with Björk, we have worked on all different albums that she's been releasing. And then there was this famous video clip. We decided to film her from very close. She's basically crying some strange liquid out of her eyes, through her nose and the mouth.
What to do with it, or where to put it.
The history of like our relationship started very simply. You know, we were working for Yoji Yamamoto, like a fashion designer, and she saw a catalog that we did, and she was very excited by our work. And she said, the world you are promoting here, or the world that you are building here, is very fascinating to me, and I'd like to be part of it. And then this is where the collaboration started, and it started maybe 10 years ago now. She allowed us to build a portrait of her, but this portrait will be built during a long period of time. So now we have in our archive or within our work, like a huge amount of work that says a lot about her, but also about herself.
Chez Michael et Mathias, une image ne dit jamais seulement ce qu'on voit en elle au premier abord. Chaque image est un paysage d'émotions et de récits qui se développent à l'intérieur d'une image.
And they're incredibly multi-talented. I mean, they can do photography, graphic design, they can do, you know, their photos and letters. They could produce a book, or they could do a film. I mean, they really could do anything.
We built a tree made of bronze, planted right in the middle of Iceland. And that was the first man-made object within this city that was supposed to be built. And it's a tree made of all those letters from this alphabet that we designed once for Björk. And because we like the idea of sending back all those signs, you know, how come like two designers are doing a tree made of bronze? But it did mean something for us. Of course, because of the economical crash, the city is yet not built, only the tree is there, but at least it's the starting point for a community. So a friend of us once bought an hotel, like a very Parisian hotel, like a 2-star hotel. And the way we answer to this specific project is like once we worked on an opera set. The opera was called Antigona, and it's a love story. The opera set was based on one image, that would be the image that would be printed on the curtain of the opera, and this image would be deconstructed, chopped up in pieces, and that will create the set. Because we designed this one big image, and then in the set there was a 4x3 poster, we decided that it would be nice when you spend one night in the hotel room, you start to think of the story of Antigona. We all started in the 90s to start to work in Paris. The cultural scene in Paris was very closed. There was like a small pockets of people that were trying to build a new world, in Ethiopia, but at least it was the idea of like, let's build Paris for the future.
Well, we were friends because we were young and we were all on this little scene at the end of the 80s. I created a magazine, Purple, and they've been hired to be the designer for another magazine, another art magazine. And so suddenly this little scene split into 2 magazines. Then it was a little competition.
Now we share ideas, we talk together. It's not someone that we really work with, we helped him to do his magazine.
Working with them is not just peaceful and easy. I work with them and I want something, they won't necessarily give it to me like that. For example, we had a long conversation about the logo of my magazine. Me, I said, no logo. I don't want a logo for Purple. And they say, Olivier, even the refusal of a logo, your no logo is a logo. So I said, yes, I agree, I understand, no logo is a logo, but I want then a no logo.
Olivier has been one of the few people that gave a quite accurate description of the both of us. And he said, one is the muscle and one is the bone. And I think that was quite precise. And just the part where we stop is that we don't want to say which one is what, basically.
The way we work together is like tennis player when they play doubles, because they know each other for such a long time. When there are 2 good tennis players, they reply and they often hit a point.
It's been going on for almost 20 years, so now we are a kind of old couple. We don't need to discuss. Yeah, but we don't need to discuss so much or to say, oh, let's do this or let's do that or what do you think. It's more like whoever feels comfortable with something takes it on.
We started small, like everything. The idea is like starting small to go bigger, because it's like by building carefully the details, it's the best way at one point just to be able to build something much bigger and with a wider scope. And that was possible because we are living in a world where a lot of things are related to images, signs. We could start and design a typeface. And designing a typeface, you can design a typeface on A4 basically. And to say that the impact of the typeface, if it's well designed, then it could have an impact on the scale of the city.
Pretty sure the first time we worked with was for our issue called Visionaire 21 deck of cards. The reason why we contacted them was because we were doing a deck of cards. So we had 4 houses. We approached and they really wanted to do the House of Spades. And they did a whole series on butchers. And I think the thinking was The spade kind of looks like a knife, and so it led them to butchers. And it was all these really great portraits of butchers in their butcher shop.
It's a kind of obsolete media today, the poster. Nobody really does poster anymore. You don't see poster for records anymore because now everything is on the internet, or you don't see posters that are anything else than advertising.
It's a kind of a tradition for a graphic designer. And as we'd like to play the idea that we are classic graphic designer, or we like the idea of to be integrating in the landscape of graphic design.
Because we kind of relate to that tradition, and it was a very conscious decision to produce regularly posters. So there are posters that are proper commissions, like some of the theatre posters that we've been doing for this small theatre in the countryside in France for over 15 years.
It's a very interesting collaboration because the poster that we are doing for them is not an illustration of the play, it's neither just a promotion of the play, it's a proposal. So basically you see the poster as if it was the stage, and the image on the poster is our answer to the text that was written, of the theatre text that was written.
I think last time we counted there was like over 200 different posters that we've produced. They are all stored next door in a small studio, and we're still doing some because we enjoy them.
When we started, they were very peculiar to France. It took a lot of time for French people to acclimate with this kind of proposal. But then it became a norm. When you ask someone to do a poster for theatre, they kind of almost look like the poster we did. So we became classic. At the beginning it was not classic, and we became classic. This started very, very small and very experimental. And then finally, we managed by this sticking to the same rules to interest and to create like a norm that was not only dealing with Frenchness, but that's dealing now with an international scale. We worked a lot for Yuji Yamamoto, based in Japan. Around 6 years we've been designing books, catalogs. That was like a big fashion collaboration. And then that led us naturally to this famous brand called Balenciaga, where we basically created the image. And then there was this also internationally campaign that we worked on. That was the campaign of Calvin Klein. Very simple black and white picture and two characters on a grey background, but the idea would be that we will write the name of Calvin Klein in blue and right on the top of the picture. So the trick was to say, for something that's so international and such a big company, to keep a very direct and like a human voice. And that went all over. So at that time, for instance, we went to Hong Kong, and then we could see the poster there, and then like a few months or a few weeks later we'd be in America and we'd see a big poster.
Experiencing your own work on the bigger scale is not an experience that happens overnight. Basically, it's like tidal waves. Like you do something and it goes here, and then it goes here, and then it goes here, and then it goes further, and then all of a sudden you realize the scale is very, very, very big, and it's the world.
We like the idea of being international and not just talking to ourselves. But we were always very interested by reassessing the French landscape. And there is a commission that occurred to us like 2 years ago, was to design a book that will contain all archive and documentation about this movie that Stanley Kubrick never shot, and it's called Napoleon. So that's going to be a book which is 14 kilo, and it's a huge book. And basically the idea of a book is like, as prisoners do sometimes, where they hide guns within Bibles that you can see in Westerns. Here, within the big Napoleon book, we carved a big hole and we hide 12 little books inside, and all those books are containing parts that conceptually could help the reader to shot the movie that was never shot somehow. So it's a kind of a toolbox. We're using the medium graphic design to write our personal story. And it has many different formats. We made a video, but we never said we are just video maker, you know. We shot once an opera where we designed the set and the costume and we worked on the whole thing. Again, it was the appropriate format to release this story to the world. Like the idea of the message, you know, sending a message, like for instance, when we designed the record cover for Madonna, we did an image that we knew would be eaten in 1 second.
We hadn't even finished to deliver the sleeve. From that tiny JPEG that we had sent to one person in the world, already that image had been appearing in like 5 million pages on the internet.
It's a very complex image. I mean, it looks very straightforward, you know, okay, like Madonna as Che Guevara. When you think about it, it was the idea of making an image that belongs to nobody somehow.
We wanted an image that looked as if already he had been around for ages and as if he was already a cliché. So you can't escape creating a cliché when you're working with Madonna.
We kind of knew before and after the computer. That was the good thing for our generation, to be able to learn within real things, on the real world, and have the computer to abstract the real world.
I mean, today the work is like almost at the end, always produced electronically. So if there is something that's handmade, it's part of the process at the earlier stages. We are part of that generation that saw the transition from analog to digital. We had a record collection and then we had to rebuy the same record collection on CD, and now we have to rebuy it on MP3. We are really a part of that generation that is witnessing and shaping the change through technology. I think in our work there is no fetishization of technology, and at the same time there is no fetishization of the handmade. We are fluent in both, basically.
Maybe we're not as fast as when we were young, but then maybe we use our brain or tricks that we were not using before. And the idea of working with someone else is that right away you have a spectator, or you have someone that's an audience. And I think that's the most important. It's true that we're now noticing that we did have a big impact, you know? That by this simple typeface that we created for Björk at the time of Vespertine, it was a very swirly typeface. Yesterday I was walking on the street and I saw someone that was wearing a t-shirt where there was written music, and then two little men, like a very, you know, like a two graphic character underneath. And it could look like something like that we did like maybe 10 years ago, but it wasn't us. Every day is a challenge because it's a difficult task to every day have the will to reinvent the relationship to the world. What we build seems easy now, but we build it from scratch. It didn't exist before. I don't know anyone else that works like us. Of course, everyone is special, but we kind of invented a relationship to the world that's every day when we wake up, we have to say, well, I still believe in it, it leads somewhere, and it's gonna be like this for the rest of my life. And even when I'm dead, it still be, you know, relevant. The worst nightmare is when one day you wake up and you say, but what does it all mean? But every day it's like a pleasure and an enjoyment, but every day also there is a part of doubt. What do you do? What does it mean?